Cinema Classics is sponsored by the Gateway Film Center and is produced by John DeSando and Johnny DiLoretto. Listen to shows online at wcbe.org. I'm John DeSando.
I'm Johnny DiLoretto.
This is Cinema Classics.
Very excited.
Oh.
This is kind of, we're going to try to unpack maybe one of the most unique careers in all of Hollywood acting history.
And, I think I like your word unique. Nicolas Cage, has been around for at least 100 movies. He's now over 100.
Wow.
And up to recently, I kind of thought him as a B actor who was...
Really?
Well, yeah, who was, despite his Oscar winning Leaving Las Vegas. I was concerned that he was just making movies to make movies.
Well, see, this is why we need to unpack this guy's career.
I know.
Because you're condensing a lot. Do you recall when you first saw Nicolas Cage? When you first were made aware of Nicolas Cage?
I have no idea. I'll tell you, it's probably Fairmont High or something where he was even Nick Coppola.
Yeah, Fast Times at Ridgemont High. He has a very small role in that. But early on, he came out of the gate with Birdie.
Yeah.
You remember that movie, Birdie, which he got some critical attention. And then very quickly, he turns in one of the great comic performances of all time in Raising Arizona.
Yeah.
So in some ways, he just really revs up the Coen brothers' career with that performance in that movie.
And as a side note, he had 2 baby teeth pulled for Birdie.
Oh, is that right?
Now, this is an indication of his very early fascination with method acting.
Mm-hmm.
But more than that, he needed to have them pulled anyway.
Yeah. So listen here.
But at Raising Arizona, you got one of the top of the Cage.
So listen to 1986. Well, 1984 he's in Birdie, right?
Yeah.
And Racing with the Moon. So he gets he's getting that. Oh, hey, here's this interesting young guy. In 1986 he does Peggy Sue Got Married.
Yeah.
Raising Arizona.
Got it.
And Moonstruck.
Yeah. How about that for 3?
Right. So very early on, I remember Nicolas Cage at that time. I remember this is a guy, a very dynamic actor that you can't take your eyes off. He was always exciting. I love all of those performances. Peggy Sue Got Married was directed by his uncle, Francis Ford Coppola.
Mm-hmm.
Then
Gave him that role, boy.
Right?
Gave him a start, for sure.
And definitely doing something very odd in that movie. Dabbling in... I don't think you could call Nick Cage a method actor. And
I think originally he wanted to be.
Okay.
You're right.
He wouldn't call himself that
wouldn't.
now. He refers to what he does as expressionistic.
Mm-hmm.
And I love this idea that he takes about his approach to acting, which is he says, it's like music, right? Or any other kind of art. And any other kind of art, you don't expect everything to be exactly perfectly real, right?
Yes.
Like in painting.
Yeah.
And so that's how he approaches these roles.
He even says that he approaches acting as if he were a criminal because he wants to break the rules. Mm-hmm. So your implication is exactly right. He's going to do it differently. Now, many people just see him as crazed.
Right, and they're wrong.
Yeah.
And I want to go on record here as saying, about 5 to 10 years ago, there was this thing that happened where the internet and the memification of the internet, where this new generation locked onto him as ironic affection, right? They looked at him as this over-the-top bad actor.
Sure.
And I just never subscribed to that.
No, but
I want to say this, though, in regards to that. So one of the things that they would point to is Face Off.
Yeah.
You remember that crazy movie? That crazy John Woo over-the-top action melodrama. There's a scene in there where he's... You remember the premise of the movie, right? Him and John Travolta switch faces.
Yes.
Travolta's the cop, and Nicolas Cage is the bad guy. He is supposed to be Travolta in this scene in jail, where he's a cop forced to kill a guy in order to enlist the sympathies of his fellow prisoners. Cage goes through this crazily operatic thing where he kills a guy, he feels guilty, he's demolished over it emotionally, but he's also getting the prisoners ramped up. So he's going from almost crying to hysterically laughing, back and forth and back and forth. People would point to that as an example of his, over the topness. I point to it as an example of a unique ability that I would defy you to name any other actor that could pull it off. It is an astonishing piece of work. Nicolas Cage keeps surprising us.
He does. Now, it took him 8 years after Moonstruck, and I loved his Ronnie Camarari, whatever the name is from Moonstruck. From Moonstruck.
Oh, Ronnie, Ronnie Camarari.
Right,
yeah.
And I loved that, again, getting into his eccentric characters. But when he hits Leaving Las Vegas in 95, playing Ben Sanderson, that's when I knew that this was a seriously good actor.
And that is the fulcrum, I think.
Yeah.
That's the midpoint of his career. Everything changes after that. So before that, you have him dabbling in some like bad guy stuff. He was in the remake of Kiss of Death, where he played the heavy. But he had dabbled in some light comedy like Guarding Tess with Shirley MacLaine. But you're right. So it builds up to Leaving Las Vegas. He wins the Oscar, and then what does he do next?
Con Air. No, well, that was 2 years later.
Well, The Rock, Con Air. He starts doing these Michael Bay action movies.
Yes.
And that is another moment in my movie-going history that I recall being very bewildered and even somewhat disappointed that, wait a minute, this is where you're going with this? This is what you're going to do with the Oscar? You're going to cash it in on Michael Bay movies?
But then he draws you back in 2002 with Adaptation.
Yeah.
I mean,
brilliant.
Yes, right. Then again, you see how serious he is. And before we end our program, I know we're not there yet, but I wanted to make sure that we mentioned the unbearable weight of massive talent.
That's why we're talking about this.
Right.
That's why we're talking about Nicolas Cage, because of this meta movie that celebrates his celebrity, his craft.
Yes.
Did you see it?
Oh, yeah, I sure did.
And what did you think?
And I thought it was brilliant. I loved it. It was not only funny, it was a great commentary on an actor working in the system and trying to make that system better for himself and for others. And there's both the wackiness, there's his need to make movies because he has 5 wives. The poor guy has debt. He stayed, I think, maybe really stayed at the Chateau Marmont for a year and owed $500,000 to that. So this guy,
it's a very lovingly deconstruction, commentary on Nicolas Cage himself. There's a moment in the movie, we know that he's done a crap ton of these direct-to-video, direct-to-streaming movies in order to, cash in on his name. There's a moment in the movie where he's looking at that grotesque, he calls it, wax statue of him.
I loved his reaction.
Face Off.
It's grotesque.
And he goes, "How much you pay for it?" And the guy says, and it's Pedro Pascal, who's brilliant in the movie.
Right, yes.
Pascal says, "I paid $6,000 for it." And Nicolas Cage goes, "I'll give you $20,000 for it." And then right there in that one line, this is how he gets in this kind of financial trouble to begin with. But you know what comes through for me? The movie, actually, I've been looking forward to this film for a while. It wasn't quite as hysterically funny as I thought it was going to be. But the missing laughs were replaced with heart. I wasn't expecting it to be as sweet and likable a film as it is, with the stuff about fatherhood.
Yes.
And also just Nick Cage's passion for movies themselves.
Well, yeah.
Not just acting, but film as an art.
And the film that he and Javi are making turns out to be the boilerplate blockbuster that they were trying not to make. So I thought that the movie itself devolved into a typical Nicolas Cage movie.
Right, and there, tongue in cheek, and that's exactly where we knew it was headed.
Yeah.
That's not all there is to say about Nicolas Cage, but that's all the time we have in Cinema Classics. Fortunately, we have Double Take.
Wow.
So go to WCBE's podcast experience page and listen for more.